The Torres Strait Regional Adaptation and Resilience Plan details how climate change will impact the region's communities and environment and what steps can be taken to reduce these impacts. The plan is a joint TSRA, TSRC and TSC publication. There is also a plan summary document that gives a brief overview of the plan. The plan has four main parts. Part A is an introduction and summary overview of the plan. Part B looks at what risks climate change brings. Part C identifies a range of actions to reduce these risks, and Part D is a framework for monitoring and evaluation. The plan is based on a core proposition. Torres Strait is the ancestral homeland of our people and is inseparable from our culture. Therefore, we strive to remain here, to retain the achievements of the present, and regain the good ways of the past for a future that is resilient to change, in particular to the effects of climate change. The ability to be responsive and adaptable is important in attaining the goals of individual and community happiness and well-being. Adaptation to climate change is an ongoing learning process. It requires we understand how different parts and processes of the Torres Strait are connected, and we will need to keep adjusting our ways as things change. So, what evidence is there that the climate is changing? We have already seen a clear increase in global average temperatures. The graph shows some of the recent hottest years on record. The lines show how the average global temperatures varies from the 20th century average. 2015 saw a number of Australian weather records broken. Globally, 2016 has been an even warmer year and is predicted to now be the warmest year on record. For the Torres Strait, climate scientists predict that climate change will lead to increasing sea levels, hotter weather and more hot days each year, more intense wet season rainfall and longer dry seasons. This won't necessarily occur every year, but the trend will be towards these conditions. The plan looks at key climate risks for 5 main areas, also called the 5 capitals, that any community needs to function well. Financial capital is about the economy and enterprise. The main climate change impacts are likely to be on some fisheries and possible damage to infrastructure. Human capital refers to the health and well-being of communities. Climate change poses significant risks to health due to increased heat stress, more severe weather events, the spread of infectious diseases, and possible impacts on health services. The various challenges climate change bring is also likely to increase mental stress. Natural capital refers to the land and sea country, and climate change brings a number of key threats to the health of the region's environment. Warmer seas and changes to the acidity of the water due to absorption of more CO2 has a range of impacts on marine life and fisheries. Changes in rainfall and temperature will also impact the plants and animals on islands. Sea level rise and erosion will change coastal ecosystems like mangroves. Impacts on infrastructure, flooding, erosion and storms pose a risk to island infrastructure and services. Social capital is all about how the community works together, human relationships and culture. This is mostly affected indirectly through impacts on the other capitals, as well as some direct impacts such as hot weather impacts on social or sporting events. So some of the climate impacts are due to direct local effects, and some will be due to impacts on the mainland or PNG that may have flow-on effects to the Torres Strait. The plan provides a brief guide to the rough timing of some of these key impacts. Some are already occurring, and some will take decades before we really see any noticeable change. The region has time to prepare and plan for these changes, but it is important that we start this process now. Some communities have already seen some tough times in relation to water security, and efforts are underway to look at how water supplies can be made more sustainable and resilient to meet the challenges of climate change. In early 2016, we also saw mass bleaching of coral reefs over much of the region and some impacts of warm water on the tropical rock lobster fishery. Because of the high humidity levels in the region, heat stress can start to impact people at lower temperatures compared to less humid areas. There are simple measures to reduce this risk, but communities need to be aware of when the risks are high. So climate change brings many changes, and changing how we do things can be difficult. But not changing is likely to be even more difficult. Part C of the plan looks at what specific actions we can take to meet these challenges. It is important to appreciate that responding to climate change needs a different approach to development because we have to factor in new risks and big changes in conditions. Because of the way things are highly connected in the real world, it is also hard to predict how many things may change. So it is important to have a flexible and responsive approach to development that can adjust to changing conditions. We have grouped the actions in the plan into three types. The first are actions that deal with events or symptoms, such as treating someone for heat stress. This type of action is the easiest of the three. The second type of action is one that involves planning and preparing, such as developing emergency response plans. These are adaptive actions. The third type of action is called transformative actions, and they aim to change the overall situation in trying to deal with the root causes of key risks and vulnerabilities. This is the hardest type of action to implement, as it requires long-term thinking and structural changes to occur. It is important that we look at all three types of actions. This plan places a very strong focus not just on the climate change risks, but also on the need to build general community resilience. This is because communities that have high social and economic vulnerabilities will be harder hit by the same climate impacts as communities with low vulnerability. So what is resilience? Resilience is all about being able to bounce back from impacts. It's about being flexible, able to learn new ways of doing things, about being connected and working together to overcome whatever challenges come your way. The plan includes around 120 actions broken into 9 areas. 3 deal with climate risks of sea level rise, heat and extreme weather, and 6 deal with building resilience for the 5 capitals and governance. Some actions are already underway, such as the building of the Saibai seawall. The plan also includes pathways for each of the 9 key action areas to help provide a guide to what needs to be considered for each area and at what point various actions should occur. Aside from the specific actions, the plan also includes 9 high-level recommendations focused on building regional sustainability and resilience. Implementation of the key actions will need strong cooperation and commitment between all relevant parties to ensure the regions remain strong in the face of climate change. Part D of the plan looks at a process for monitoring and evaluation. Did we do what we said we would do? Climate change presents many challenges to all communities all around the world. The Torres Strait has some particular risks, but also many great strengths. Whilst there are many pressing challenges now that demand our attention, it is important we look at how climate change is likely to shape our region and begin to prepare for these changes now. Good planning and effective action will help ensure that despite these challenges, the Torres Strait has a bright future. For further information, please contact John Rainbird or Vic McGrath at the Land and Sea Management Unit, TSRA. Big yes for your time.